Hi guys, I went live during the delay. I kind of messed up this whole stream. So yeah, I kind of messed that up a little bit, but here we go. I mean, these things happen. It's a good thing that there's only like 3 people live with me. It's not really much, but here we go. So welcome to another edition of the Movie Club. Last week we talked about Jurassic Park, and then we picked from our beautiful hat a new movie, which was Memento, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Very exciting. The thing is, why all these technical difficulties are happening is because I am sort of trying to do multi-streaming. Clearly, from the debacle that has been happening in the last 15 minutes, I'm not ready to do anything similar to that. So yeah, even though I did a practice session earlier this afternoon and everything went smoothly and everything went fine, but now when I went to do it for real, kind of get messed up. I'm supposed to be live here on YouTube and live on Facebook as well. I cannot tell. I think I am, but I am not sure. I'm supposed to be getting comments and stream here so that I can see everything, but I can't see anything, so I don't know what's happening. At any case, I'm glad you guys are here, and whoever you are, and I'm glad we're here to discuss this cool movie. So let's do it. So, I mean, Christopher Nolan. Hi, Steven. Steven's late. Let's see who we have in the comments. We have Steven. We have William. Online with family. He will join later. Cool. Hi, guys. We have Neo with us. Yeah, we got a bunch of people. So I think it's a pretty cool movie to talk about. I think it's a pretty old film. This is exactly like 20 years ago. This movie came out in the 2000s. And late in the 90s, I think there was like a really cool rise in a new way of telling film, in a non-linear way of telling film. You got Pulp Fiction earlier coming in, and then you have things like Fight Club and The Matrix, all films that are sort of not your traditional way of storytelling. And around that time, we also got Memento from Christopher Nolan, who was a very, very young filmmaker at the time. A very small budget film, was like shot in like 25 days. But it wasn't his first feature, but it was really the feature that put him on the map as a very exciting new director who's going to do really cool new things with films and cinema. And it was pretty well received, and I think it still stands the test of time. I haven't seen it in a long time, so when I saw it, there are a lot of things in there that I enjoyed and I liked, but I enjoyed it more from a technical point of view rather from a viewer point of view. I kept really focusing on the writing and the storytelling and the script and the plot and the linear and non-linear structure and this kind of stuff. I was really like obsessed with that. I couldn't focus on anything else much. And I think it's pretty cool the way that it's done, because I think it's very difficult. That's the thing about Memento and why I like it so much. I'm really glad we got to talk about it. And I want to talk about how difficult it is. Like that's one of my main points, is just how difficult it is to write this movie and direct it in a way that made sense. I think that's the biggest achievement of this movie, is that it makes sense when it could have easily like not made sense at all, but it does. And I'm going to sort of break down the different timelines that are happening, because there's multiple timelines, and it takes a structure that is known as reverse chronological structure. The big misconception is that it's a movie in reverse. Not technically, it's not a movie in reverse. It's a reverse chronological, which means, I will explain how that means. I don't know how. I think I need to use like some papers or something to explain it. I'm going into professor mode, but because it's actually very, very complicated, the way that the structure of the film and the different timelines and the different storylines that are happening, the way that they are assembled is actually very difficult. Before I do that, I want to check in with you guys and see what are your first impressions of the movie now, like after having seen it. What are your first impressions? Neo says, oh, can we watch this discussion in reverse? Again, so it's not reverse. Technically, it would be reverse chronological, because it's not going back in reverse. Not really. Only the opening scene. That's the only scene actually in the film, I believe, that is in reverse. The opening scene where he shoots Teddy. Let's see. Ahmed Khan says, truly genius, showed the genius what Nolan is. Yeah, I would say. I mean, I think he was still a little rough around the edges here. He was still young, so he was still experimenting with his style. But there are a lot of director stables, like his own. Like he has a very unique style, a unique way of making movies, which is pretty cool. And a lot of those things that we see later in The Dark Knight and Inception and Interstellar, a lot of those cool things are actually in this movie. So that's actually a good point about Nolan. I'm going to write that down so I don't forget. I want to talk about Christopher Nolan, and I want to talk about how he, what is his like signatures, you know, as a director, and the little bits of pieces of his style and his usual choices that are here that later on translated and sort of blossomed in other movies. That's something I want to talk about. That's pretty cool. I like that. Let's see. We have Steven. Hi, Steven. Sorry I'm late. It's fine. I was late too. I had a lot of technical difficulties trying to stream on multi-platforms. I don't think it worked. So let's see. It's really cool, non-linear film, but I feel like you can only watch it twice for the story. Yeah, it's definitely a very rewatchable film because it is confusing. It's not confusing. I wouldn't call it confusing. I would say it's disorienting, and I think that's the point. The point is to put you in Lenny's shoes, sort of, because he's disoriented, and he's an unreliable narrator, and he puts you in his shoes for you to feel just as disoriented as he is. So I think that's what it is. It's like the play Betrayal by Harold Pinter. Sure, yeah, cool. Neo says, the only part I didn't quite understand was the phone call, to be honest. Who was that? Was it Natalie's boyfriend? That's the question. No, I think you're a little confused, Neo. It's the phone call in the black and white timeline is actually the call to Teddy. Teddy was on the phone. Teddy's manipulating him. That's kind of the big reveal at the end. Teddy's manipulating him in order to use him so that he can take out some bad guys so he can make some money on the side. He is a cop, and he is the one talking to him. And actually, when he puts the number, when he is about to make the call and hesitates, the number that he puts is Teddy's, is the one that's on the photograph, I believe, or at least the beginning of it. So I think that's what that is. Ahmad is asking, what are his signature touches? And Neo says, I think it's needing 2 packs of Panadol after the movie. That's a good point. Yeah, definitely. He does give you a bit of a headache. But let's talk about Christopher Nolan here a little bit. Why not? Let's start with that. So Christopher Nolan as a director, he's one of my favorites, actually, to be honest with you. And he's not my favorite because of The Dark Knight. I know that a lot of people I love The Dark Knight. It's not my favorite in the Dark Knight trilogy, actually. My favorite, it's still Batman Begins. I think it's it's just Dark Knight Rises is cooler, but I think as a Batman story, I think Batman Begins is actually a heavier film. A much nicer character study for Batman himself. The Dark Knight is, Joker and him and Two-Face, and it kind of gets lost. But it's still freaking awesome movie. But yeah, so I actually love him because of his other stuff. I think he's a very fantastic director, and I really like his style, and I like this stuff. So let's talk about those signature moves that you see in his film that are actually present in a lot of films. Well, first of all, you talk about the main character. Almost always his main characters are male, white, until the new film that's coming out. What is it called? His new film, I think it's called Rent or Revenant. It was supposed to come out now, but it actually got postponed because of coronavirus. I don't remember what it's called. Revenant. I think some of you guys are gonna let me know in the comment section what it is. But yeah, but that's the only time. But most of the time, it's sort of a male white lead character who is somehow broken or damaged physically or mentally, like for Lenny, it's memory loss. For like Al Pacino's character in Insomnia, he has like a rare sleeping disorder. Tenant, thank you. That's the movie, Tenant. Thanks, guys. Ugh, it's completely slipped my mind. Yeah, Tenant. So he has always this character that's sort of damaged, has some sort of mental or physical disability that he can't get over, especially mental, like Batman, his fear of bats. You have here Lenny with his memory lapse and things like that. So he always has these characters that are sort of weird, right? You have also characters that are sort of obsessed with revenge a lot, and especially revenge of a loss of wife. You have the Prestige, the wife dies and he wants revenge. You have here, you have sort of Inception. He doesn't want revenge, but his wife is dead, and that's what motivates him a lot. It's a big part of his character. Of course, Dark Knight and the death of the girl. Dark Knight Rises, the Talia al Ghul, the death of her father, like all of it. He always likes this. He always has like main characters have their wife die or a significant person to them die, and he sort of the main character has to sort of get revenge for that. Christopher Nolan definitely, clearly from this and many other films, likes to play with timelines, likes to play with the process of time and not time as much as it is structure, which is jumping around back and forth between different timelines. And here he does it in Memento. So far, for me, it's the film that does it the most. Like, you see elements of this in Dunkirk, you're probably going to see it in Tenet, you of course see it in Interstellar, and he honed that skill of telling a story in a non-linear structure and jumping back and forth in a way that's not crazy. I mean, in Memento it's kind of crazy. It sort of gives you whiplash, which is insane. And I just think that it's pretty cool what he does. Also, you have like the storyline, you have like in his films, he uses a lot of cool transitions. This movie doesn't have as much. He kind of sort of developed that later on. But like one of my favorite transitions in the movie is, you know, when he's going between black and white, so you have a black and white timeline and a color timeline. And then when they connect all together in the climax, there's a really cool transition in the color while he's staring at the Polaroid. So things like that, he has really cool transition. So you have this non-linear thing that he does even in Batman Begins. That's why I like Batman Begins, because he goes back and forth in time. He does it in The Prestige really well. He does a lot of cross-cutting, going back and forth between parallel timelines. Interstellar does that. There's always the cool, something that he does a lot that I saw here that I didn't realize before, one of his signatures, is that his endings always have a theme, like there's always a speech at the end of his films where he sort of justifies the dishonesty, like that the truth is not the best option, right? And you have somebody making a speech that's sort of justifying that. So you have it here with Lenny, you know, choosing to believe the lie that the killer, that his wife's killer is still out there, because that's his only purpose. Without memory, he has no new purpose. He cannot make a new purpose for his life. He can only chase revenge, the ghost of revenge. So he recreates it, you know, and Teddy helps him. And in this film and in this timeline, eventually Teddy becomes the person he seeks. You know, he lies to himself. He's the one who writes do not trust him, and that's that photo, that Polaroid, and the writing on the back is a key element here to establish that. So in the end, you have this speech of him saying, like, am I lying to myself? Is living a lie better? Something like that. You have Michael Caine doing that speech in The Dark, The Prestige, where he talks about, again, believing the lie and believing the magic trick and the illusion, right? Delusion, living a delusional life, which is a big theme in The Prestige. So he kind of justifies that with like a montage and the voiceover. And of course, very famously in The Dark Knight, when Bruce Wayne says, you know, not Bruce Wayne, Commissioner Gordon says, you know, he's not the hero we deserve, but the hero. And even him, he does that line where he tells him, like, you're gonna hunt me down, you're gonna blah blah, things like that. So they have that, like, justifying living a lie in a sense, which I think is pretty cool. Let's see what you guys are saying about any kind of Christopher Nolan stylistic choices or staples. Oh my God, that's a lot of comments. I got a little preoccupied. But yeah, even Inception has it, Neo. Yeah, Inception in the end, is it true? Is it a dream or is it not? That's again part of his style. Is it okay? Does he need to know if it's dream or lie? Is it okay to live the lie? Things like that. Steven says truth is flawed, maybe. Knowing isn't always better. Yeah. So exactly. So that's also one of his signature moves, I would say. What else does Christopher Nolan do that is pretty cool here? His main character is, again, chasing revenge, losing a wife. He really likes, I mean, he's married and his wife is like his producer and they work together a lot. Her name is, I think, Emma. And she's, I believe, associate producer on this. And I think they have a good relationship. I mean, they're still together. But man, this guy really likes killing off wives in movies. So it's very interesting. Yeah, psychological disorder in this memory, like in Memento, you have the memory condition, you have the lack of sleep and insomnia. By the way, Insomnia is a really cool film. He did it after this in 2002. It's actually a fantastic movie. I think it's Al Pacino and Robert Williams. Very unknown. This is unknown for him as well. I mean, because they're old and it's before he like rose to stardom from The Dark Knight. I highly suggest you guys check it out. And of course, even Inception, you have his like, you know, I have Cobb's like inability to grasp reality. So yeah, there's a lot that he does that's pretty cool. He also a lot of times sort of references the movies he's done before. The film he did before this one, I think it was called The Beginning or something like that. I don't remember. It's the only film for his that I haven't seen. Like it was his debut feature. And I don't know if he references in this, but I know he references a lot of movies that he's done, especially later on, The Dark Knight and stuff like that. Like in The Dark Knight, like he does want to see a magic trick. The film right before that is The Prestige, things like that. So it's pretty cool. He always has obsessive. Again, it's the thing about Christopher Nolan is I think he is his main characters because almost most of his films have a similar main character. He's somebody haunted by his past. He's lost somebody. He's obsessive, and he has some sort of mental disorder that is holding him back. And they sort of hide who they are. So they all do this, and they all have these like physical or mental disabilities that are holding them back. The Following, that was the name of the movie. It was The Following, 1998. That was the movie before this, 2 years before this. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that he does, of course, in cameras and things like that. But there's always also some sort of blackmail. This sort of has blackmail in it, where that girl is blackmailing him, sort of, or manipulating him. So yeah, let's see. What are you guys doing? Poor wives, says Steven. Yeah, exactly. Steven says, I've missed Insomnia. Highly recommended, actually. I highly recommend Insomnia. It's actually a very, very nice movie. Very slow. Very cool film. Very underrated for him. And I believe Robin Williams is in it, and he's playing a serious, disturbed role, and it's actually pretty cool. Neo says, thank you, Westworld. Yeah, so Westworld, like the show, you know, it's developed by his brother, Jonathan Nolan. Actually, Jonathan Nolan wrote the story that the script is based on. So the script is actually adapted from the story. The script for this film is just fantastic. I believe it was nominated for an Oscar if it didn't win. Steven says, Steven is talking to Neo saying, I wish my brothers were that useful. Yeah, he's pretty much written most of the stories that Nolan has developed into films, which is pretty interesting. I want to talk a little bit about this timeline situation, right? This broken up timeline, and why I think it's so impressive as a script. The thing we need to understand is that, first of all, we need to identify that there are three layers, and this is something Christopher Nolan does a lot. Speaking of his staple, it's those layers, right? Look at Inception. There's always like what you're seeing on the surface, and then another thing happening under that, another thing happening. It's like a multi-layered narrative cake, right? And that's something that he does. So we have like sort of three layers of three categories in this movie. Number one is the story that's sort of being told in reverse, which is represented here in color. And I think it's a very smart move of him to sort of switch around the color scheme between black and white and color, because no way if this was fully colored you would have understand what the heck was going on. But he has the first timeline, which is the timeline of Lenny after he had killed Teddy, and then going back to see why. And that's the first question: why did he kill Teddy, right? And then you have the black and white portion inside the hotel room, which is not in reverse. That's actually linear. That's a linear part of the story, where he's talking on the phone to we don't know who. In the end, it's revealed to be Teddy. And then after that, we have within that sort of a B story where he is telling a story, and then you have another flashback that's also linear, when he's talking about Sammy, right? And about his past as an insurance investigator, and how he investigates the case of Sammy, the guy who he thought was pretending to have memory lapse. So you have those three layers sort of to the movie. And the way that they are actually arranged is crazy. I don't know how I'm going to sort of explain that and explain just how crazy it is, because when you look at it on paper, it's a goddamn mess. So first of all, we have, let's do it this way. I need a paper. Might as well do a bit of a class here. You guys will know what it'll be like to take a class with me. All right. I need a whiteboard, but I don't have one. Okay, so let's see. So first of all, we have the first timeline, okay? So there. All right, so that's the first timeline. Oh, that's working. So let's call that the timeline, the colored timeline, all right? So that's one, colored, okay? That's the colored timeline, okay? This timeline is the story of him killing Teddy, okay? If we say the structure of the story or the plot goes from A to Z, all right? A, B, C, D, all the way to X, Y, Z, like this, all right? Like that. That's from A all the way to Z. That's the story as it exists, like in life, not in the movie. Then we have the second one, the black and white, all right, which is the hotel room. All right, so we have that. Amazing handwriting. So then we have the hotel room, okay? That's the second line. Let's say that if we denote it sort of to make sense with numbers instead of letters. So we go 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10, for example, right? That's it. So then we have like the story from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 until the end, and then we have A, B, C, D until Z to the end of that. So these are the stories, okay? I'm not gonna go into the Sammy. I'm gonna count the Sammy storyline as if it's part of the black and white stuff. So what does he do? So if we divide A, B, C, D into actual scenes, and we divide 1, 2, 3 into actual scenes like this, okay? So we divide them into the scenes. So scene A, then scene B, then scene C, D, and so on. And same thing is here, scene 1, 2, 3, just the black and white stuff, okay? Actually, I think the film has 22 scenes in it, I think, black and white. But let's say 10 for us. They're not 10 scenes, definitely more than that. I'm not gonna sit here and count the scenes. Like, I don't get paid for this. So let's say that's it. How is the timeline of the film, or how is the plot of the film non-linear, but how is it distributed? It's distributed as follows. A, B, and C is reverse chronological. This is how I want to like give you the difference between like reverse and chronological, okay? If the movie was reverse, all right, it would look like this. It would be Z, Y, X. We would be just going back in reverse, and the scenes would be like going back in reverse just normally. So we start at the end of Z, and we end at the beginning of like Z, and then like you just go back in reverse, right? That's how it would be. But that's not what he does. What he does is he does Z, and then Y, and then X. I hope this makes sense. I don't know if it's making sense. What he does is that we watch Z, okay, fully, but we watch it linear. We watch it chronologically. And then once a section of that is finished, he sort of goes back and tells us why from the beginning. So it's basically as if he takes this, cuts it up as a piece, like Z, cuts it up as a piece, and brings it down and starts with it, okay? And then he cuts up Y, and then brings it down. So every segment you're seeing linear, but you stop at a point, and you go to the previous section and you watch it. So that's why it's called reverse chronological, because we are going backwards in the story, but the sections are linear. They are chronological, but they're just in reverse order. I'm afraid to look at the comments if this is making sense or not. So Stephen says three threads are interwoven, and the Queen Elizabeth timeline. Yeah, this is from the Queen Elizabeth. I mean, this is the paper that's available. Help me out here, okay? So what does this mean? Here's what it means, okay? How are they distributed together? In between, right? In between the A, B, C, D, and Z. So in between, hold on, I need to see my camera. See what I'm doing. I wish I had like a software. So in between these guys over here, in between those, 1 and 2, so 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are separating them. They're separating them. So that's crazy. So what do we get? So we have, all right, we have Z, 1, Y, 2, X, 3, and so on. So it's like this. So you have Z, and then 1, and then Y, and then 2, and then X, and so on. That's crazy. When you look at it like that, you're like, how on earth does this movie make sense? So basically it looks like this. Like, I'm just gonna, look, I'm gonna use highlighters to have this make more sense, okay? So we have, I'll make it purple. So let's say the, this is purple, that's my colored one. So that's the colored one. And then green, for example, is for the black and white, for example. Can you see colors? Yeah, you can. So like that, okay? So when you put them together and you mesh them together and he sews them together, he kind of has purple. And then he has green. I think the colors look different for you guys there because of the white balance, but whatever. Looks like this. That's how the movie is done. These parts, the bluish purplish parts, are done in reverse order, but each scene is chronological. And 1, 2, and 3 is the black and white that is actually linear. And he always uses those sort of to separate the film and make sense of it in the middle. What do you guys think? I think this is crazy. Neo says, also it takes years to put these together logically. It didn't really take that long for him to make this movie. It's a very low budget film, and he actually made it on like in 25 days or something. It's not really much. Ahmed says, dude, it sounds like a script writing nightmare. It is. That's the cool thing about it. It's crazy because it's woven together in such a cool way that it's kind of, the fact that it makes sense is really, really interesting. And the only reason it makes sense, by the way, and it doesn't get tedious, the only reason for that is the 1, 2, 3. It's those guys. Those guys are why it makes sense. Because otherwise, if this movie was just going back all the time, it would be a mess. It would be a mess. So yeah, so I think that the structure is actually pretty cool. I think that it provides like such an amazing way to experience the film and experience the fractured memory. The movie is fractured. It's sort of cut up and sewn together, pieced together, like the puzzle he's piecing together in his mind. And that's why it works so well. I think he does very well with it. Let's talk about the characters a little bit. I think also the use of the Polaroids and him writing the notes on the Polaroids and then you seeing those characters and trying to understand who they really are is one of the coolest things about the films. I mean, we have like a very big twist with the character of Natalie, played by Matrix Lady. At the time, like this is at the height of her career. This is when she was famous for playing Trinity. It's like around that time, and it was 1999. This is 2000. So she was shooting right when Matrix came out. She was a big star at the time. So yeah, so I really like the way that it showed us that she's a nice girl. She will help him. The first time we see her and he looks, or the first time she's mentioned and he looks at her Polaroid, he sees that it says she's lost someone too, she will help you out of pity. But on top of that, from the beginning, we see that something got scratched out. And this is how this movie creates your addiction or your hook or your obsession with finding out what went wrong, which is exactly the obsession of the main character, which is why it works so well. Most movies ask you, or when you're watching movies and normal scene structure, usually what you're thinking or what the audience is supposed to be thinking is what happens next. So you watch a scene, when it's finished, they're like, oh, what happens next? Oh, what happens next? Oh, what happens next? The thing that Memento does that is really cool is that it changes that question, which is a normal, typical question you find in any film, and makes it a different question. When it becomes, instead of what happens next, what happened before, or what just happened. Because that every scene starts at the beginning of a reversed scene or of a scene previously. We have no idea what happened before. We are contextless. And that's why the moment a scene starts, you're like, whoa, how did that happen? So it's kind of how do we get here every time? Every time, which keeps you constantly hooked, and it keeps the film from being, it's never boring. It's never like, okay, I know that. You know, it's never like that. You're like, how? Wait, what? You're constantly like with question marks popping out of your head, and it makes it very, very compelling. And the Polaroids are a key, because every time you look at a Polaroid, you always want to see, how did that Polaroid get taken? What is that? What is this? And you become a detective yourself, right? Being in the mindset of the protagonist. And you look at like her scratched out thing, and you're like, how did that get scratched out? And you want to know, which is very, very interesting. I really like it. I like the details of this film as well. It has a lot of details in the props. It's all feeding into this big puzzle that he's building. I really like the fact that he uses, like, for example, he says things like hints, Lenny's character, his voiceover, he says things where he's hinting at certain things. Like, for example, he says that you learn to trust your own handwriting. So a lot of times, like, you know that people have tried to trick him in the past, and he writes in a very specific way, which is not necessarily his handwriting, which I thought was a pretty cool detail. When Teddy tries to make him write "Do not trust her," when he's trying to warn him about Natalie, he writes it in cursive, and it looks different. And I like paused. I'm like, that doesn't look like his usual handwriting. So he actually changes his handwriting because he doesn't trust Teddy, or Teddy's trying to tell him. And then when he goes away and looks at Teddy's photo, and he sees that it says "Do not believe his lies," he then goes back to Natalie's photo and scratches that out, and then that is kind of answered. That's cool. Like the Polaroids and the notes and all that kind of stuff creates these questions all the time and keeps you in a questioning mode. And you're constantly asking, what does this mean? Why? And then these answers they're given to you. You're not constantly going, oh, what? What's going on? I don't understand. Because that's also a bad sign. If you're sitting and watching a movie and the whole time you don't know what's going on and you're just wondering what's going on, that's actually not very beneficial. It doesn't really work well. But the cool thing about this is that Nolan, in Memento, establishes so many dramatic questions and constantly answers them bit by bit, which makes it really cool. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comments down there. So I've heard someone has recut it purely in chronological order. No, it's not someone. I mean, maybe somebody did, but actually the DVD, when they released it on DVD, there were two discs, right? The first disc is the normal one, and there's another disc that plays the film in chronological order, which is pretty cool. And you can't, I remember you can't access that unless you solve a puzzle. There's like a puzzle on the DVD or something that you have to solve in order to access the chronological order cut. And here's the cool thing, back to my drawing board. If you play this movie, let's talk about that order. If you play this movie, not the movie, the story, not the movie. If you play the story in full chronological order as it happened in real life, you'll find, like, this is the timeline. I love how, like, so cheap this is. This is why I have only like 5 views, but whatever. So, is it like that? Yeah. So A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way, E, F, G. I'm gonna do it. So A, B, can you guys see? I think G, H, I, all the way to Z, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 10. Okay, so okay, so A to Z is our color timeline, as you guys know. So basically, this is what he's doing when he's like, sort of, is that right? I think I got messed up a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, that's how it happened. So A is him. Where does he kill Teddy? So Teddy is basically the climax. Hold on. I'm just going to double check. I just want to double check my notes, because if I mess this up, I'm going to confuse you. But it's actually pretty cool when you look at it in terms of the numbers and the letters. So let me see. So yeah. Exactly. So he kills him at Z. All right. And then it's, okay. So it's the other way around. I messed it up. I knew I messed it up. Okay. So again, if we say that the colored timeline is, we start in Z, right? And Z is what? Z is Teddy getting killed, Teddy getting whacked. So that means that moving towards, so it's actually like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 10. Okay, and then it's A, B, I got it, D, C, all the way to Z. I'm really sorry, but I got it. So we start, the story starts with him in the hotel room, and he's talking to Teddy on the phone, and he's telling him about Sammy and all of that stuff, all the way until 10 here. Sort of 10A is the climax of the movie. And the climax of the movie happens at the end of this timeline, which is when he meets Teddy, when Teddy comes to take him from the hotel room. And then A is when he goes and he kills Teddy, right? He goes out with him and he kills Teddy. And that's all of these things happen. And then in the end, he kills Teddy, right? At Z, right here. So that's sort of the whole timeline of it. And what this does is basically, we go back from Z to A, and then those are cut in between. And that's how the final timeline got created. If this looks like a mess and it doesn't make sense, that's because Christopher Nolan is an insane person and his stories don't make sense. His timelines don't make sense. But that's, if you play the story fully, like chronologically, if you cut the movie, that's what it looks like. So it's the black and white scenes first, and then the colored scenes all the way until the end. And then they sort of reversed the colored scenes and stitched them together with the number scenes. Let's see what you guys are saying about my amazing display of whatever the hell I'm talking about. Hold on. What? There's a lot of comments. One thing. I was actually wondering about that. I'd like to see this fully. Yeah, it's there. It's there somewhere. I think you probably can find it. People died, guys. It's very sad. And we're sitting here talking about how he killed them in river. I mean, it's a crime film, man. That's you gotta do it. Is that right? I think I got messed up a little bit in quotes, Raz, and anybody who's trying to analyze Nolan. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, he's a crazy person. And obviously this movie is a crazy movie for crazy people. Maybe that's why I like it. It actually inspired me. I actually ended up, when I was in film school, I made a film in reverse. I was inspired by this and a film called Irreversible. That's a film in complete reverse. And I thought the idea was actually pretty cool. So yeah, so clearly Nolan was crazy from the get-go, and he creates these crazy timelines and layers, multiple layers that connect the story together. And the way it's used in, what I like about this is it's not just a gimmick. It's not just, oh, we're just going to tell a story and mix up the timeline. I like the fact that it's like that for a reason. Like, this is one of the things that I might get hate for, but this is one of, like, look, I like Pulp Fiction. I'm not a big fan of Quentin Tarantino. Whoever has been watching my channel knows, and that's a whole other discussion. But Pulp Fiction is cool, but the only reason it's non-linear is for the cool. It's not for any other reason, it's just cool. And I'm not saying it's not cool, it's very cool, but that's it. But this movie is non-linear and it's kind of a mess structure-wise because it's from the protagonist's point of view. It's his experience. It puts you in his disjointed experience. He's an unreliable narrator, and we are following his story, and we are experiencing the same kind of chaos that he experiences and the same kind of disorientation and disjointedness of information, like Stephen pointed out. So, which I think is pretty cool, and I think he did it very, very effectively. Neo says, I feel there's a big board of the story events on a wall somewhere when Charlie says, with Charlie Dade's meme of somebody trying to analyze this film. Yeah, it's me, just now, sort of. I mean, this is like a meme, like, this is a meme, me trying to sort of put the chronological order of the film together. Yasser says, neither am I a fan of Tarantino. Nice. I know there's some of us, there's dozens of us. That's a Arrested Development reference that I like. There are dozens of us who don't like Quentin Tarantino, okay? We are out there, and we have a voice. We have a voice, damn it. We shall not be silenced. So anyway, I really enjoyed watching this movie, actually. I love movies that play with timelines and structures. I think it's pretty cool. I think reverse chronological structure is a very, very difficult structure. I don't think I've seen it done anywhere else more successfully than it was done in this Nolan film. I really like how this movie kind of showed us some of Nolan's tricks, but early on before they were honed and mastered really well. So that's pretty cool. And that's what I have to say about it. So pretty cool. I think it's time for us to pick our next movie, which is going to be next week. And I'm actually very excited about that. So let's see. Here's our hat. Before I do that, I want to put some suggestions in the hat box. So I want to see what you guys have. I've asked some of you on our Facebook group, in the Movie Club Facebook group. I've asked you to give me some of your suggestions. So I'm going to go there and see what you guys suggested. And as promised, I'm going to put it in the hat. So let's see, in the Movie Club. So you guys suggested, some of them are already on there. And feel free now in the comments section as well to add in some of your suggestions that we can put in the hat as well. And anytime, really, just you guys can talk and communicate on the group, because it's your group. It's not just my group. It's not my page. So the reason why I created it is I want you guys to talk. So I want you guys to suggest things. I want you guys to talk about movies, talk about what we saw. It's pretty cool. So let's see. What do we have? So I'm looking at it right now. We have Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I actually don't have that movie. I'm looking for the small pen. There it is. So Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I don't have that. Close Encounters. Okay, so let's put that in there. We have Silence of the Lambs is already on there. Good Will Hunting is already on there. Beaches. Okay. I've never seen it. I know it's, what's her name? Broadway Jewish lady. I know that. It's a big feminine film, I believe. What else do we have on the list? Fisher King. I have not seen The Fisher King. That's Robin Williams. That's one of the Robin Williams films I haven't seen, I think. Fisher King. But I've heard it's really good. That's suggested by Yasser. So let's put that in there. Let me see if you guys are making any suggestions in the chat box, so I can put some of that in there. Cavalry, haven't seen that. Bette Midler, yes, that's who is in Beaches. Cavalry, okay. All right. Let's do that, okay. I need another one for that. All right. Cavalry. Okay. All right. You guys ready for the draw? It's a Brendan Gleeson movie, 2004. Calvary. Sorry. Ooh. I don't know. If we get it, I'll know how to. Amores Perros, Neo. Neo's coming in with the big guns. All right. Sure. Amores Perros. Vertigo is already on there, my dear. You think I didn't put Vertigo? It's my favorite Hitchcock film. It's definitely on there. So that's on there. Amores Perros. Interesting. Seven Samurai. I put a bunch of Akiras. I put Seven Samurai. I put Rashomon. And a third one. I forgot what it was. Amores Perros. All right. Okay. Vertigo is good. It's amazing. It's not just good. And I'd have a lot to say that. I studied that. I wrote a paper actually on Vertigo back in school. I need to find it if I ever talk about it. All right. Okay. You guys ready? All right. Let's do it. I think we're ready to go. Let's do this. If I missed anything, I'll add it for the next time. Okay. So here's our hat. All right. Let's pick something. Give me something good. Give me something fun. Let's watch something fun next week. All right. Okay. That's pretty cool. It's The Usual Suspect. Who is Kaiser Soze? I like it. I haven't seen this in a while, actually. That's pretty cool. Okay, so that's our next movie, guys. The Usual Suspects. We're going to be live again on Tuesday. Again, please like, share, subscribe. Help me get people onto the stream. Help me get people onto the group. Talk about it on your social media. Put it on Instagram. Put it on Facebook. This is a lot of work to do, so I need the views and I need the engagement. And also, it's kind of boring if there's, because I'm alone all the time, and the whole point of this is to get you guys to talk to me. So sorry about the technical difficulties today. I'm sure I'll be able to sort it out next time. But yeah, so write, comment, share the stream on your social media. Talk in the group, invite people to the club, to the Facebook group, the movie club, by Razz Reviews. If you go to my page, Razz Reviews on Facebook, you'll find it there, if you can't find it in the search. And let's talk about some more movies. All right, so I'll see you guys next week on Tuesday. Watch it. Make sure you watch the movies, right? I think starting next week, maybe I'll push it into a weekly thing, because I think maybe most people are not finding enough time to watch the film. Maybe a couple of days is too ambitious of me. Some people have kids and stuff. I don't have kids. So maybe I'll push it to be a weekly thing. But next time I'll meet you guys is probably on a Tuesday or something. I'll post it on the channel. Keep an eye out on my Instagram, Razz Reviews on Facebook, Razz Reviews on YouTube. Click the subscribe button and share. Tell the people. And I'll see you guys next week. Thank you very much for joining me. Bye-bye. See ya.